Okay, so in the last video where we left off was this idea of a coordinate system. So let's refresh this here. So right now I have this set up so that the ellipse, the circle, is following the position of my cursor, right, of the mouse. And of course we could give it just any old. So we can just say you are fixed at that point. Keep in mind, even though this looks like a still graphic, this is an animation. It's just there's no motion, right? It keeps writing frame after frame after frame after frame after frame after frame. And there, we could, obviously later we'll do some coding to make these things move in different places. But the challenge, I guess, I gave in the intro class was to figure out how to place it. In fact, we'll go back to mouse X and mouse Y. I'll reset here. The challenge I gave was using those, just putting in numbers for the ellipse. How could I position one ellipse right in the center of the screen? And then if I cut this in half, how would I make it half of that distance and half of this distance to put it here? Put one here, one here, one here. So basically like a five-sided dice, but the thing here is that we don't have a square, right? We have 800 by 600. So how would we find half of this and put something there? And then how do we find half of the half, right? How do we find that quarter and then put this into the center of that position? Okay, so there are several ways to do this, but I just want to do this mathematically. So if I, there are various ways. We haven't started using the print function, but I could actually ask the computer to do the math for me. I could have it, I could say we haven't even done variables, but in essence, I could say, take 100 divided by 2 and give me the answer, right? And that would, that's what I am going to do here. So 800 by that is, I'm just going to put this in, is 400, right? So I'm just taking from here to here and dividing it in half. And then I'm going to take from here to here, which is 600, right? And so that will be 300. Ooh, we'll probably have to get rid of that there. Right, so I've put a circle right in the center. So now I want to put one, say, right here. So I have to take the total from here to here and cut that in half, and from here to here and cut that in half. And that'll be my answer for this. Right? So what I'm going to do is just copy that. And we could come up with this answer so many different ways, right? I can just do the math in my head. I could divide it by 4. There's so many different ways. So let's just start with trying to think through this kind of what we did before, right? So I said 400 divided by 2, all right? So if you want to get a calculator out, I can do this in my head because they're nice and round numbers. So this would be 200, right? So that would be half of 0 to 400 would be 200. So this will give me the x position. And then from here to here is 300. So what's half of that? So 300 divided by 2, actually, we'll just type this out, right? Equals 150. I think what I'll do is just use my commenting, right? So 400 divided by that gives me 200. Now I'll comment that out, right? So this just helps me figure out what these distances are. So let's say this would be 200 from the edge and 150, right? So then we have the next one. All right, so we now know that these, that quarter distance is 200 and 150. So now what we need is something that's, whatever the half is, we have to add half the distance from here to here, right? Well, we've already figured that out. It's 200. So, oops, that cool little commenting function I'm going to use later. So I'm going to take this one. And I could just say plus 200, right? So I can say get halfway there and then half of that. And then maybe I'll say, and then this one actually is going to be let's leave it. Let's say minus 150, right? So go, what is half this distance? And then decrease this, because we're counting from 0 to 600, and we're counting from 0 to 800, right? So I can do the math this way, or I could just figure out the math and write in the number, right? I could say 600 and 150, right? So there's the position of that other one. So I could keep going with this, right? Copy. So this time it would actually be this one we want to go back from the center, and this one we want to add from the center. And then one more. And this one we want to add from here, and then we also want to add from the center, right? We want to go this way, and we also want to go down, and that's going to put us right here. Right? So there is my little 5-sided dice, but on a rectangular dice cube. It's kind of weird, right? So the coordinate system is very important, right? Where we position these things on the screen. You know, there's many complicated ways to do this. There's a lot of simple ways. Most of the time, the math that we're going to use in the class is plus, minus, multiply, and divide. There's a little bit of, there's like a formula we use for a little trigonometry thing as it relates to arcs and circles and things like that. But I'm going to show you a real simple way to do that. Once you get used to the little formula, and there's I always just go to the reference actually and remember how the little equation works. It's very, very simple. But most of the time it's just like, hey, add some stuff or subtract some stuff or multiply some stuff, right? There's lots of different ways we could get to these numbers to find these positions, right? There's a lot of different, I could say 2 times 4 equals 8. I could also say 7 plus 1 equals 8. So something to keep in mind. So this is just an overview real quick of that coordinate system and this idea of how we would use the coordinates to put these in there, right? These are all for the ellipse. We want the X position and the Y position, and then we want its X size and its Y size, right? In case we want to draw an oval. In this case, we're just doing the circle, right? So we're just plugging those numbers in, and since we figured these out, we can just combine them into the, do the math within the arguments of the, so you can have actually really long equations inside this comma and this comma. We could do lots of different things. Okay, under 10 minutes, nice. All right, so I think I will pause there and save this tutorial, and then I will do one more as this little intro section with the basics of how to, and we're gonna draw something different than an ellipse we've been using the whole time. We're gonna draw a line, and we're gonna look at maybe using some variables for the first time to make a very simple little drawing tool. All right, I'll see you in a second.